Hi everyone, I hope you are all well. It's been a week since my last video, and yeah, it's been quite a week. Very busy with work. My last full week before Christmas. That is insane. I've still got 3 days to go, so I'm not finished for Christmas yet, but I'm just like, that is crazy. I can't believe that. So I'm looking forward to begin my Christmas break on Thursday. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. Also on Friday we had the new Discovery Witches Series 2 trailer, which focused on Matthew and his storylines, and oh my god, Matthew Good is gonna be amazing in Series 2. It's just there's a lot that Matthew goes through in the second book, so I'm just like, oh my god, they're gonna do great. And also, I couldn't believe it, Taylor Swift dropped another album for 2020, her second album of 2020, and it is so good. Well, I say so good. I mean, it is great album, but I think Folklore is better. That she calls her new one, Evermore, the sister album of Folklore, and it's kind of, they are similar but they're different. It's like Folklore is spring and summer, and Evermore is autumn and winter. They're completely different, yet they're still similar. You know, it's like that. It's just, oh my god. But there's one particular song in it that I have become obsessed with. I literally, when I say obsessed, I mean it got released 5 a.m. here in UK. I first listened to it at 6 because I slept in a bit. And by about 9:30, I knew this song off by heart. I was like, oh my god. And it's called No Body, No Crime. I'll link it below. But I'm just a bit like, this so sets the tone of where my head is going to be in 2021 because of the books I'm going to be reading, which I haven't announced yet, but there we go. That song is a bit of a teaser for you in regards to the tone of where 2021 reading is going to be. So I hope you like it if you haven't heard it. But anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about the book I have been reading this week, which is The Book of Dust by Philip Pullman, Volume 1, called La Belle Sauvage. There are 3 books in this trilogy. So this is the first one. This was published, I think, 3 years ago now. Then the second one, called The Commonwealth, was published last year. And the third one has yet to be announced of anything to do with release dates, title, anything like that. So that's where we are with Philip Pullman's works at the moment. So this is the world of his Dark Materials, but it's been 20 years since Philip Pullman has been in this world. And from what I knew about the Book of Dust trilogy was that there was going to be time jumps. So just so you're aware, this one, La Belle Sauvage, is in the past. It sets up Lyra's arrival in Oxford when she's 6 months old. And I know that the Commonwealth is in the future because Lyra is 20 years old in that book. My mum's read that book. That's how I know that. So there is time jumps. Now, Philip Pullman himself said that he wasn't seeing this trilogy as a prequel or a sequel. It is an equal. And I was like, okay, right. Not sure I like the way that you described that, but okay. But you can't doubt that the first book is a prequel. Lyra is 6 months old throughout this book, and it sets up how she got to Oxford, stuff to do with the alethiometer. We meet characters who are in his Dark Materials, throughout his Dark Materials. Some characters I was very happy to see again. Some characters I was not so happy to see again. But I knew they would pop up because of the link to Lyra. It was so obvious that they were going to pop up. And we are mainly following two, well, let's face it, they're kids. They're, well, teenagers. There's Malcolm, who is 11 years old. He really likes 11 years old in Philip Pullman, because Lyra and Roger and Will in The first is Dark Materials book, although I know Will doesn't pop up till the second, but go with where I'm going here because the age range I'm talking about. They're all 11 years old at the beginning of his Dark Materials, so it only made sense that Malcolm, our lead in La Belle Sauvage, is 11 years old, and he works in a pub for his mum and dad, and so he's like a bottle washer, he's a waiter, he does this, that, and the other. And he works with a teenager, she certainly is a teenager, called Alice, who is 15 years old. And Alice and Malcolm have got quite different personalities. Alice likes to push Malcolm's buttons. She really does. She's kind of like, it reminds me of someone like poking at like a lion or an animal of some sort, with a stick through a cage. She's just constantly prodding him and waiting for him to snap. And when he does snap at her, which isn't often, but when he does, she does back away, but she still hangs around. She really likes him. Yeah, so it's about them two. And Malcolm likes to row as well. He really loves literature and science. He's got vast interests in things. And one day, because he likes to hang out like with the nuns and such of the local kind of church or cathedral kind of it. And one day, a 6-month-old baby called Lyra turns up. And basically, it's kind of the journey to get Lyra to Oxford. That's the end goal. Get Lyra to Oxford. And why she needs to get to Oxford. So that's kind of your synopsis, as it were. Now, I loved his Dark Materials when I read it. Was it last year or the year before? I can't remember. It's been a while. I've read so many books. Recently I've lost track of what I read for the past year or two. I really loved his Dark Materials because it was a trilogy that I tried to read when I was at university, and I just didn't have the time or patience because I was studying. And now that I did, I read it and I absolutely loved it. So going back to that world, I mean, I only had a gap of like a year or two at most. I didn't have the 20-year gap that fans from when the book originally came out have had. So I did remember things, and I picked up things like, oh, that person's got a surname of a certain character in his Dark Materials. Okay, the connections and such. But then at the same time, there were things from the original trilogy that I forgot. Connections and such that I've got. So I think it's probably, you don't have to have read his Dark Materials at all, but from a fan of the trilogy of his Dark Materials, it might be good to reread that and then go into the Book of Dust and see how you feel about it. But I didn't. I just went into this and just got my way through it. And I have to say, I liked it. I didn't love it. I had issues with it. Now, Philip Pullman knows how to write a book. He knows how to write a book. There's no denying that. And there's no denying that he did great in the way that he wrote this. But at the same time, I kept on thinking, do I really need nearly 600 pages to go through how Lyra gets to Oxford? But then I realised there's a lot of in a way world building, because there's all of these organisations that are being referred to. There are connections between characters which I didn't know about from reading his Dark Materials, or maybe I did read about it but I've forgotten the little reference to it, so therefore I've just lost that, and I'm not fanning over that reference because I don't remember it, So this is why I think it's probably better if you read the trilogy of his Dark Materials and then go into the Book of Dust. He did write it well, But at the same time, I was a bit like, it's been about 400 pages and not much is actually happening. Lyra's pretty much just like gone to the other end of the town, or it was just like, what is this? Why do I need to know all this? But I have a feeling it's because of what's going to happen in the Commonwealth, which I haven't come across yet. But I'm actually, because of this first book, debating even if I want to read the Commonwealth, because it was just okay. I didn't feel like, oh my God, I have to read the next one. And even though it did build up in pace and it did have this epic final sequence, it just didn't hit the mark for me. And I'm like, why? Is it because I'm too far away from, is it that I also have this theory, that because I loved his Dark Materials so much, I don't want it tainted. If it was a case of that he has made all of these all the references to all the things that get established in this Book of Dust are in his Dark Materials already, so he knows that connection, all those organizations to all of these peoples were established in his Dark Materials already, then I'm like, okay, it is a proper built world, and everything. I am cool with that. But if he's just written it and just thrown in these things, and then he's going to see how he builds it into the next one and then into the final, I don't like that. I just, that's how I felt reading this book. It's like, are you only writing this as a tag on, not to expand on something that is already pre-established in the trilogy? That is the question that I was constantly asking myself throughout this book. And I honestly can't answer that question. I think I'd have to reread the trilogy just to see if there are any of the references to these organizations that are constantly referred to and about establishment and such in this first Book of Dust. And most likely they're going to be fully referred to in the Commonwealth as well. But yeah, if those references aren't there, I kind of feel like, what was the point of it being written? Did we really need to know that? Why? You know what I mean? So I feel really frustrated, where I'm like, yeah, it was an all right book. It wasn't the best, but it was all right. But I don't know where this is going. And then at the other times I'm like, but he did write that stuff really beautifully, and he did talk about things that I didn't necessarily think he would talk about. Like, I love, oh my God, baby Lyra has a baby Pan, a baby demon, and I never thought of that. I'm like, oh my God, of course she would have a baby version of Pan, and that was just so frigging cute. So it was things like that I got really quite excited about, and then other ones I'm just like, what is this? Why are you writing this? So thus I'm so conflicted about if I even want to read the Commonwealth. It's a real tough one. The way that it's written, just so that you are aware, is in third person and is very flowy. It feels young adult fiction. It really feels it. I mean, his Dark Materials, I never had that feeling. I knew it was written for a younger audience, of course I knew, but I never got the feeling that this is specifically for young adult fiction. This one I did. And I don't know how I feel about that as well. Not that I'm saying that he had to write it. He's specifically chosen to write it in a different style than any of his other books. Far from it. I'm not saying, he wrote it how he wanted to write it, and he stayed true to himself in the way that he writes. But I just very much felt like it was very much like, okay, Malcolm is hearing conversations, or he's, when he's doing his waiting on people and such, and he very much, clearly he's being kept out of the loop in these conversations, and people are being cryptic in the way they're saying things around him, or whatever, and it doesn't register with Malcolm. But the exact same kind of technique done in his Dark Materials, Lyra recognizes that, and she's able to break that apart. She understands it. She gets it. She's smarter than people think she is. Now, I'm not saying that Malcolm is dumb. No, not in the slightest. He is precious. He is a really lovely character. But it was just a bit like the way in which Philip wrote about said conversations in his Dark Materials felt very different than the Book of Dust. Like he's deliberately he's even pushing his audience out of the loop, with cryptic stuff, than he did in his Dark Materials. So I felt that his Dark Materials felt smarter. It felt more adult. And thus, I think his Dark Materials kind of respected the audience more and treated the audience as adults, just like Lyra wants to be treated as an adult, even though she is a child. So to then have this flip side, it just kind of felt like, Philip, what are you doing? I had issues, and some characters were really frigging annoying. Sometimes characters, I couldn't understand why they did things they did. I was just a bit like, for every single thing that I'm being positive about, there's about 4 or 5 negative things that are nagging me at the back of my mind. And so I really don't know if I want to read the Commonwealth. I really don't know. And if I do, if Philip doesn't, because Lyra is 20 in the Commonwealth, if Philip goes along with this writing this disconnect and not treating his audience as adults, again, what's the point? Lyra is an adult, so treat her as that. Do you see what I mean? I was just like, oh, maybe I was just in the wrong headspace to read Book of Dust this week. I don't know, but it's just like there was something about it that just said no in my head. Or maybe I don't want his Dark Materials in a way tainted in my mind. I don't know what it is, but La Belle Sauvage just, I thought it was overly long. It fell flat of my expectation, which is a shame. And I feel like, as well, there are, because like Malcolm and Alice, I know there's links to his Dark Materials, but I'm like, we're not just going to like magically have these two pop up again, are we, in the Commonwealth or Federal? Do you know what I mean? I just kind of feel like we're going to have a mass reunion of characters for quite possibly no reason. And that kind of feels a bit to me like a bit of a cop-out. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, guys, but I think it's fair to say that this was, if I had to give it a 5-star rating, it's probably a 3. As a book, it's all right. But for the narrative, for what he's doing in this book, the reason why he's writing this book after 20 years away from this world, I don't get it. I think he should have just left it alone, or published this, or written this, should I say, sometime within that 20-year gap. I don't see why do it. It is like, say, for example, J.R.R. Tolkien has finished The Lord of the Rings. 20 years later, he then decides that he's going to write about Sam in his later years in life. Do we need that? Nobody asked for it, so why are you doing it? Do you know what I mean? I keep saying that. I know I've said that probably about 10-15 times now in this video, but it's just I have issues. I have issues. Let's put it that way, guys. So yeah, I can't, if I keep on talking, I'm just going to be repeating myself and just going, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So I'm going to stop. So yeah, so La Belle Sauvage from the Book of Dust, Volume 1. Yeah. That's how I'm going to sum it up. Yeah. Let me put it this way. This isn't going to appear on my worst reads of this year, and it's not going to appear on the best either. It was just okay. But I just, yeah, I don't particularly understand why you wrote it. Sorry, guys. I was so excited that this was going to be a good one, and it just didn't work for me. So those are my thoughts reading La Belle Sauvage, the first book of the Book of Dust by Philip Pullman. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. You can leave me a comment in the comments box below, or give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely up to you. I'll let you decide. And yeah, I'll put Taylor Swift and such in the description, and enjoy it, and you can get an idea of the tone of where 2021 is going to go with my reading, and I'm so excited. And anyway, I will be back with my thoughts on my next read, which is my first Minette Walters book. It was a book that my mum and dad got me for my birthday, I think 2 years ago now. It's The Last Hours. And reading about this, I was flicking through this earlier this morning, not reading anything, just flicking through, looking at like people's comments, quotes and stuff like that about this book. And right at the back, it said excerpt from the upcoming sequel. So I'm like, oh my God, it's got a sequel. So if I like this, chances are the sequel might be appearing on my list of 2021 reads. So let's see how we go. So I'll be back with my thoughts on The Last Hours by Minette Walters as soon as I am done. And it probably will be next weekend, given that my Christmas holiday starts on Thursday. I am so excited. All right, guys. Bye.